Hassanyon witnessed a human pleading for clemency? No, neither have I, Commander K scoffed while speaking to the gathering. The Galactic Council Hall hummed with unease as the diverse species present regarded one another with apprehension. K's imposing 7-foot stature held the central space, his scaled hands tightening into fists as he moved back and forth. Humans lack strength, he went on, his tone saturated with disdain. They have not engaged in any galactic strife for more than 1,000 years. They shelter behind their diplomatic maneuvering and delicate pacts, too fearful to rely on their own capabilities. A ripple of concurrence spread through the hall. The Terran Empire had frequently been the target of mockery, their non-involvement in the galaxy's conflicts construed as timidity. For ages, humanity had successfully avoided active combat, brokering peace while others conducted war, gaining time through agreements and commercial arrangements. It was an approach that had preserved their homeworlds while others succumbed to flames, yet it had garnered them minimal esteem. Perhaps delivering an ultimatum is advisable, proposed Sathal, a willowy aquatic individual whose skin shared the hue of the abyssal ocean. Compel them to select a faction. Either they align with us against the Krogan, or we systematically disassemble their treasured empire. They will not engage, Kay scoffed. They will capitulate before the initial shot is discharged. Humans are overly refined, too advanced to involve themselves directly. The assembly nodded, the resolution essentially settled. A communication would be dispatched to the Terran Empire, insisting on their prompt participation in the galactic struggle against the Krogan. It was a conflict that had persisted for decades, annihilating entire star systems in its path. The Council had become desperate for any advantage, and the Terran Empire, with its immense resources and sophisticated technology, represented an unexploited reserve. Should they decline, the Council would launch an invasion and seize their assets. However, what the Galactic Council had neglected to grasp, what they could not have possibly perceived, was that humanity's tranquility did not stem from apprehension. It was a meticulously curated veneer, a fragile equilibrium that had concealed the Terran Empire's genuine essence for centuries. The humans had not lost the knowledge of warfare, they had merely elected not to practice it, convinced their very existence relied upon this choice. The message was dispatched, transmitted throughout the galaxy across all frequencies, in every language recognized by the Council. It arrived at Terra Prime within hours, its delivery laced with poorly concealed menaces and disdain. 2 days thereafter, the Council obtained a reply. The communication was brief, almost disappointingly concise. 3 plain words: we accept, prepare. There was no further elaboration, no stipulations, no attempts at negotiation, simply an assurance that the Terran Empire would enter the war effort. Commander K gazed at the message, his certainty wavering for the initial time. "What is the meaning of this?" he snarled, his eyes narrowing at the display. "This is not the reaction of a terrified species." Sathal shifted restlessly beside him. "Maybe they plan to provide backing from afar, supplying materials but not troops." K shook his head. "No, the message is unambiguous. They are entering the war, but why the abruptness? Why so nonchalantly?" The council members exchanged apprehensive looks, the prior arrogance dissolving, confronted by this unforeseen turn. Humanity's response had been excessively serene, excessively deliberate. It wasn't the behavior of a species unwillingly drawn into hostilities. It was the reply of a species awaiting a justification. "What information do we possess regarding their military?" Kay pressed, turning towards his aides. "What forces are we confronting?" One of his officers, a stout insectoid being named Vrix, fidgeted anxiously. "The Terran Empire has maintained notorious secrecy concerning its military strength. We possess estimations derived from trade logs and technological exports, but—" "Estimations?" Kay cut in, his voice escalating in frustration. "What concrete intelligence do we have on their actual military units?" "Very limited, sir," Vrix conceded. "Their fleet is substantial, but its activities have primarily involved exploration and trade route security. They have not participated in a significant war for over a millennium. Their soldiers are reputed to be well-disciplined, but again, we lack definitive information. Their most recent documented conflict was a minor clash with the Drari, which concluded with a diplomatic resolution before substantial combat could commence. Kay's exasperation intensified. And concerning their armaments? Their strategies? Unknown, Vrix answered, his mandibles clicking nervously. The Terran Empire refrains from sharing such details, and their interactions with other species have been strictly non-military. The commander struck the console with his fist, the impact echoing through the chamber. Damn it! We are proceeding into this completely uninformed. Sathal laid a cautious hand on Kay's arm. Perhaps we ought to rethink our strategy. Dispatch a delegation to discuss terms, guarantee that their participation will align with our interests. Kay shook his head. No, we have already decided on this path. If we retreat now, we will look feeble, and vulnerability is a luxury we cannot permit, not with the Krogan so close. The council members grudgingly concurred, although the apprehension within the room was tangible. The Terran Empire's sudden readiness to participate in war had unsettled them, but retreat was no longer an option. They would confront the humans on the field of battle and secure their support through whatever measures were required. Within days, the Council fleet was assembled, the most extensive armada ever brought together in the galaxy's history. Hundreds of warships, ranging from sleek frigates to massive battleships, convened at the designated meeting point near the boundary of Terran territory. The Krogan constituted a dreadful foe, their biotechnological armaments and unyielding aggression posing a persistent menace. The Council had anticipated a prolonged conflict of attrition, but with humanity's entry, they hoped for a rapid and conclusive triumph. As the fleet awaited the arrival of the Terran forces, anxiety permeated the ranks. The crews exchanged whispered speculations about what the humans might contribute. Some envisioned fleets of sophisticated advanced starships armed with undiscovered weaponry. Others spoke quietly of enigmatic superweapons concealed on Terran worlds, capable of obliterating entire planets. But as hours elapsed with no indication of the Terran Empire, uncertainties began to surface. Where could they be? Kay muttered, pacing the bridge of his flagship. They indicated they would be present. Perhaps they intend to meet us further into space, Sathal proposed, though his tone lacked conviction. Kay was about to respond when a notification flashed on the primary console. Incoming transmission, the communications officer declared. It originates from the Terran Empire. Display it, Kay commanded. The image that materialized was not what anyone had foreseen. It wasn't a fleet, nor was it a delegation of human diplomats. It depicted a solitary man dressed in a dark uniform, his expression indecipherable. He stood on what seemed to be the command center of a warship, although its design differed from any the Council had previously encountered. This is Admiral Marcus Reeve of the Terran Empire, the man stated, his voice level and calm. We are en route to your position. Stand by to receive us. The transmission ended abruptly, plunging the bridge into stunned silence. Kay stared at the empty screen, his thoughts racing. There had been no sign of reluctance, no hint of the frailty he had anticipated from the humans. Admiral Reeve had spoken as if he were already directing the situation, as if the Council fleet operated under his command. Something isn't right, Kay murmured, more to himself than anyone present. They exhibit excessive confidence. Sathal, ever the voice of prudence, nodded. We should be ready for any possibility, Commander. The humans might have concealed their genuine power from us all this time. Kay scowled but remained silent. He couldn't dispel the sensation that they were nearing something far more perilous than they had conceived. And as the shadow of the Terran Empire grew nearer, the Galactic Council started to comprehend they might have committed a serious error. The atmosphere on the bridge of Kay's flagship was so tense, it felt physical as the Terran Empire's fleet transitioned out of hyperspace. The display monitors lit up, revealing vessel after vessel emerging into the emptiness. But these were not the refined, graceful constructions the Council had expected. The Terran ships were rugged and functional, featuring sharp, angular contours and an intimidating aspect. Each vessel bristled with armaments that appeared almost excessive, even by Council criteria. By the gods, someone breathed on the bridge. Kay stared, his reptilian eyes narrowing. The firepower arrayed before them was unmistakable. The Terran fleet was enormous, significantly larger than anything the Council had foreseen. Yet it wasn't merely the sheer quantity of ships that sent a wave of apprehension through the assembled Council officers. It was their method of movement, with exact, synchronized precision, like a predator pursuing its quarry. "Establish communication," Kay commanded, his voice carrying a trace of apprehension. The screen flickered and Admiral Reeves' image reappeared. This time, the Admiral was seated in his vessel's command chair, his manner as serene as before. "Commander Kay," Reeve commenced, inclining his head slightly in a motion that could signify respect or mere convention. "The Terran Empire has arrived as stipulated. We stand prepared to confront the Krogan alongside the Galactic Council." Kay's jaw set firmly. There was something disquieting about Reeves' composure, as though the Admiral was completely cognizant of the Council's uncertainties and utterly indifferent. "You have brought quite an armada, Admiral," Kay remarked, forcing a smile. "It surpasses our expectations." "We advocate for thorough preparation," Reeve answered smoothly. "The Krogan represent a significant adversary. It would be foolish to misjudge them." Kay's eyes narrowed further. "I trust you grasp the severity of this situation, Admiral. This conflict differs from the minor engagements you might have previously encountered. The Krogan do not parley, nor do they withdraw. They battle until their foes are annihilated." Reeves' expression remained unchanged. "The Terran Empire is entirely aware of the Krogan's disposition. We have encountered comparable dangers previously, though perhaps not of this magnitude. Be assured, Commander, we are ready." Kay's intuition screamed that something was amiss, yet he couldn't pinpoint the issue. He was a veteran warrior and had confronted numerous adversaries on the battlefield, but this felt distinct. "Very well," Kay stated finally. "We shall proceed jointly. The Krogan fleet has been located in the Nestor sector. Our strategy involves intercepting them before they can penetrate the core systems." "A sound approach," Reeve concurred. "We shall follow your direction, Commander." Kay terminated the transmission and turned to his officers. "Monitor their movements meticulously," he directed. "I require notification if they deviate even slightly from our planned course." The Council fleet initiated its advance towards the Nestor sector, with the Terran vessels assuming formation behind them. The unified armada presented an impressive spectacle, a demonstration of the might of the galaxy's most potent civilizations. Nevertheless, an undercurrent of fear permeated the Council ranks. The Terran Empire's abrupt involvement, their overwhelming display of strength, and Reeves' unnerving serenity had destabilized everyone. As they drew closer to the Krogan's last reported location, the tension intensified. The Council's fleet proceeded cautiously, scanning for any indication of the adversary. The Krogan were notorious for their ambush strategies, utilizing their bioengineered warships to execute devastating surprise assaults. "There!" one of the officers exclaimed, indicating the screen. A cluster of red indicators materialized on the radar, swiftly approaching their position. "Enemy fleet identified," Kay barked. "All vessels, prepare for engagement." The Council's warships shifted into battle arrangement, their weapon systems activating. The Krogan ships were colossal organic abominations, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent energy. They surged onward with alarming velocity, intending to collide with the Council's formations. "Fire at will!" Kay commanded, and the void erupted in a conflagration of energy as the Council fleet commenced firing. Beams of plasma and kinetic ordnance traversed space, impacting the Krogan vessels. The enemy ships countered with their own bioweaponry, discharging corrosive fluids and spore-laden capsules that adhered to the Council ships, corroding their hulls. The combat was intense, the void illuminated by the flashes of detonating ships and the cries of dying vessels. The Krogan, true to their notoriety, fought with unyielding ferocity, launching themselves at the Council fleet without concern for their own survival. But then, the Terran Empire acted. Without prior notification, the Terran ships surged ahead, breaking formation and diving directly into the core of the Krogan fleet. Kay observed in astonishment as the Terran vessels unleashed a torrent of firepower unlike anything he had previously witnessed. It wasn't merely the quantity of fire, but its precision. The Terran weapons sliced through the Krogan ships with surgical exactitude, striking vulnerable points with unerring accuracy. "What are their actions?" Sathal gasped. "They are violating formation." Kay's eyes widened as he grasped the reality. The Terrans weren't violating formation, they were carrying out a strategy they had not disclosed to the Council. The Krogan fleet, caught unprepared by the sudden, overwhelming assault, began to falter. The Terran ships maneuvered with terrifying coordination, each movement calculated to deal maximum damage while minimizing risk. The Krogan, despite all their ferocity, could not endure the onslaught. One after another, their ships were disintegrated, their once formidable fleet diminished to debris within minutes. And throughout, Admiral Reeves' composed voice echoed in Kay's thoughts. "We stand, ready." As the final Krogan ship detonated, silence descended upon the battlefield. The Council fleet, damaged and scarred, lingered in the void, stunned by the abrupt and conclusive victory. The Terran ships reassembled, their hulls scarcely marked, their weapon systems already powering down. Kay sat in his command chair, his mind struggling to process the events. The battle had concluded almost as swiftly as it had commenced, and it was the Terrans who had brought it to an end, not through sheer force, but with cold, calculated precision. They knew, Kay whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. They understood precisely how to vanquish them. But even as the understanding settled, another notion started to emerge, a concept far more alarming. If the Terrans could inflict this upon the Krogan, what were they capable of doing to the Galactic Council? The Council fleet floated in shocked silence, the debris of the Krogan vessels dispersed like fragments from a shattered illusion. The victory had been so rapid, so total, that it felt unreal. Kay's attention remained fastened on the Terran ships, the sleek dark forms now strangely immobile in the battle's aftermath. He could sense the gazes of his crew upon him, seeking explanations he did not possess. Commander Sathal's voice cut through the quiet, his tone cautious. "What are your directives?" Kay hesitated, his thoughts racing. He had dedicated years to preparing for a prolonged conflict with the Krogan, only to see it resolved in mere minutes by an ally he scarcely comprehended. The ramifications were immense. The Terrans hadn't merely entered the war, they had terminated it before it could genuinely commence. And now they dictated the galaxy's destiny. "Open a channel to Admiral Reeve," Kay commanded, his voice firm despite the internal chaos. The screen flickered, and once more Admiral Reeve's serene, inscrutable countenance filled the view. Behind him, the bridge of his ship bustled with activity, yet the Admiral himself appeared entirely composed, as if he had anticipated this outcome all along. "Commander Kay," Reeve acknowledged him with a nod. "A decisive triumph, wouldn't you concur?" Kay stared at him, seeking any indication of conceit or deception, but found none. Only that same unsettling placidity. "Yes, Admiral," Kay replied, selecting his words with care. "Decisive indeed. The Council expresses its gratitude for your support. Your tactics proved highly effective." "Thank you, Commander," Reeve stated, his expression constant. "The Terran Empire is invariably prepared to assist our allies during periods of necessity." The term allies lingered in the atmosphere like an unspoken menace. Kay could perceive the unvoiced query from his crew and the Council fleet. Were they genuinely allies, or had they merely traded one peril for another? Kay cleared his throat. With the Krogan fleet eradicated, the immediate danger is averted. However, substantial discussion remains regarding our prospective collaboration. Reeve's gaze seemed to intensify, though his smile persisted. "Indeed, Commander, there is much to deliberate. The Terran Empire has long remained separate from the galaxy's conflicts, but we possess our own concerns. The Krogan represented merely a manifestation of a broader issue, an issue demanding a unified approach." Kay's scales tingled at the implication. "And what issue might that be, Admiral?" Reeve leaned forward slightly, his look intense. "Instability. The galaxy is a hazardous domain, Commander, and it grows more so daily. The Krogan posed a threat, yes, but they were not the sole danger. For the Galactic Council to endure in the long run, it requires more than just sporadic victories. It necessitates strength, unity, and leadership." Kay's breath hitched in his throat. Leadership. The word reverberated in his mind, carrying the weight of everything he had dreaded since the Terran fleet first materialized. You are proposing... what, precisely? Kay inquired, though he already perceived the answer. Reeves' smile broadened almost imperceptibly. An alliance, Commander. One not confined to a single engagement or even a solitary war. The Terran Empire extends its power, its assets, and its safeguarding to the Galactic Council. In exchange, we request cooperation. Genuine cooperation under a consolidated command. Kay's blood turned cold. The Terran Empire wasn't requesting an alliance. They were stipulating submission. The Council would not function as an equivalent participant in this structure. They would be subservient to the Terrans, their independence relinquished for the assurance of security. And should we decline? Kay asked, his voice barely audible. Reeves' expression stayed unchanged, but his eyes were as hard as steel. Refusal is naturally an option, but reflect on this, Commander. The Krogan were a formidable adversary, yet they collapsed within minutes. The Terran Empire's influence is extensive, and our capabilities surpass what you have witnessed today. We do not desire conflict, but we will not recoil from it if required. The threat was explicit. The Terran Empire had demonstrated its might, and now they presented the Council with a decision. Align with them or confront the repercussions. Kay's thoughts raced. He had devoted his entire career to fighting for the Galactic Council's survival, leading engagements against foes who jeopardized their existence. But this was fundamentally different. The Terrans weren't an adversary in the conventional meaning. They were something far more perilous. A power capable of reshaping the entire galaxy according to their design. But he also recognized that opposition was pointless. The Krogan had represented the Council's most significant threat, and they had been annihilated in moments. What prospects did the Council possess against the complete force of the Terran Empire? Kay inhaled deeply and met Reeves' gaze. We shall deliberate your proposition with the Council, he stated, his voice level despite the gravity of his words. But comprehend this, Admiral. The Galactic Council has endured for millennia. We shall not be governed by fear. Reeves' smile reappeared, though it did not extend to his eyes. Of course, Commander. Utilize all the time necessary. The Terran Empire will await. The transmission concluded, and the screen went blank. Kay slumped back into his chair, feeling the weight of the galaxy upon his shoulders. He knew his necessary course of action, but that knowledge didn't simplify the decision. Sathal approached him cautiously. Commander, what course will we take? Kay stared at the darkened screen, his resolve fixed. We are going to endure, Sathal. Whatever is required, we will endure. The Council would debate the Terran Empire's proposal, but Kay knew it was already futile. The moment the Terran fleet had materialized, the galaxy had been irrevocably altered. The Council would need to adjust or face destruction under the weight of the Empire's power. As the fleet commenced its return journey to the core of Council territory, Kay couldn't help but recall the old maxim, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. But now the galaxy faced a new devil, one that remained largely unknown. The Terran Empire had proven to the galaxy that humanity was not fearful of war. They had merely awaited the opportune moment to remind everyone why they constituted the most dangerous species in the galaxy.